We're live.
We're live.
Today, we talk about one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world,
That's right.
and still a mystery today, the Great Pyramid of Giza.
It is amazing. It's one of the, it's the only actually existing one of the seven wonders of the world. All the other six have been destroyed by time, earthquakes, this, that, and the Great Pyramid of Giza is still there.
Oh, wow.
It's one of the original
Of the ancient world, yeah.
seven wonders of the world.
Wow.
Yeah. Because, there are a lot of things out there that are extremely mysterious.
Right.
And they're labeled also wonders of the world. And indeed they are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Like that, we were talking about that underground city, Derinkuyu,
Yes.
in Turkey. I mean, how did they build something like that? And how does 30,000 people live in there with 10,000 air shafts? That would be a nice thing to talk about. But the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Yeah, I mean, in trying to prep a little bit, since you know a lot more about it than I do. But one of the things that's fascinating to me is that it's not there were no mummies found
Correct.
in the Great Pyramid of Giza. So how does that happen? Because isn't aren't the we I always thought the pyramids were where mummies were found. Where tombs were.
Well, because the traditional books tell us that it was the burial place for a pharaoh called Khufu. Okay, there are three pyramids. Okay, the biggest one, which is the Great Pyramid of Giza, is supposed to be the burial place for a pharaoh named Khufu. Okay, and then there's the second one, which is the supposedly burial place for Khafre, and then the third one, which is for Menkaure. Okay, so those are the three pyramids, and they label them that way. But I'm here to tell you today that's wrong, and not because I'm trying to, it's. I think there's overwhelming evidence already to prove that it's wrong, and we'll get into, because the Great Pyramid is a tremendous monument. Okay, I mean, the Great Pyramid weighs over 6 million tons. Okay, it's got a footprint of 13 acres. Okay,
Wow.
it's aligned to true north by 1/60th of 1 degree off of true north, not magnetic north, but the actual true north. 1/60th of 1 degree. That's almost building perfection. Okay, it's 481 feet tall. Okay, and it's got chambers within it that had to be drilled or whatever out of solid rock. Okay, so it's a tremendous monument. And I took my grandkids to see the pyramid in Vegas, in Luxor. Okay, the Great Pyramid is at least 10 times bigger. I mean, and this we're talking about a hotel, at least. So it's a tremendous construction piece of engineering, and the people that built it were brilliant. The mathematical equations that pop up as you study it more. Okay, and I'm no expert in it. There's a guy named Randall Carlson. He's got this video on something called sacred geometry. Go there. He's an expert, and he's a wealth of knowledge. But if you take the base of the pyramid of Egypt, of Khufu, the Great Pyramid, and you measure it, and you multiply that times 43,200, and I'll tell you about that number in a second. Okay, you get the equatorial circumference of the Earth. Okay? And then if you take the height of the pyramid and you multiply it times 43,200, you get the circumference for the north and south longitudinal for the poles. So you get the dimensions of the Earth. They're built into that. So when you get into this sacred geometry kind of thing, it is an exact replica, ratio-wise, 43,200 to 1 of the Northern Hemisphere. So there's just too many things that there's no way that cavemen or whatever, hunter-gatherers built that thing. There's just no way. And I don't think that slaves built it either, because this was a building of complete devotion and of total love for what they were doing, and they were concentrating on one task. And there's a lot of information that it's leading everybody to believe that it was an energy producing type of plant.
Like an energy plant.
An energy plant, that it was producing it. And a lot of the stuff that has been built with, it's conducive to thinking that it was an energy thing.
Right.
But getting back to your question, the reason why they label it the Pyramid of Khufu is because high above, okay, so the pyramid is divided into different chambers, okay? And I made a rudimentary drawing just to not miss any points. But the king chamber, okay, so you have the king's chamber, and then there's a little cubbyhole to the right. You can barely fit your body through. Apparently now there's a rope that hangs off of it so that the people that go there can pull themselves up. And then you can pull yourself through this cubbyhole above the king's chamber, which it's the one where everybody sees that so-called sarcophagus, okay? And there are 5 chambers above that. Those 5 chambers, the floors and ceilings of them are capped off by 70-ton granite stones. Just think about it. 70 tons. Okay? So you've got the bottom of one is the ceiling of the other, but it's 70 tons, which 70 tons, okay, I forget the comparison, but I think it's like several airplanes, the weight of several airplanes. And that was raised over 300 feet.
And a ton is 2,200 pounds, just to put some context.
Yeah. So it's, how do you do it? Okay, and so
how are you lifting that?
Huh?
How are you lifting
How do you lift that? So, and not only how do you lift it, how do you place it so precise that you can't even get a piece of paper in between the cracks? It's not possible. A little, a thin, but to your question, and I know I got carried away on it because I'm passionate about this. I've been reading forever about it, and so I really like it. And now my grandkids are talking about it, and it's just a lot of fun to see them, how nerdy they're getting on that subject. But so way up there, okay, they discover a cartouche with the name of Khufu, okay? Why would the king...
And what's a cartouche?
A cartouche is like a circle, an encircling thing that is a hieroglyphic. It's a circle where normally the name of a pharaoh is inclusive in it. And they call it a cartouche. And the interesting thing is, since the French were there and they discovered the Rosetta Stone, they named it cartouche because it reminded them of the ammunition that they used to use for their weapons. It looked like a cartouche. So that's part of the little trivia of the history. You find out when you read some of this stuff, which was interesting. That's why they call it a cartouche. Now you'll never forget it. But anyway, And so way up there, they just find this hieroglyphic, okay, and
one
just one, nothing else, okay?
in the whole pyramid.
Through the entire pyramid, nothing else, okay?
Yeah.
And it is one of the biggest monuments that has ever existed. In fact, I think it was the highest building in the world, I believe, until the Empire State Building was built.
Mm-hmm.
So can you imagine? So just that one little thing, okay? And I read somewhere, and I can't find it. I've looked for it from here and there, but I can't find it. But some people believe there was a little bit of foul play because it doesn't look like something that would be written by the people of the era. And there's an associated story to it that the guy that was doing all this research was running out of money, out of funding, mm-hmm. and he needed like a stimulus. And so I don't know. I don't want to talk about that part because I really don't know that. I want to stick to what I really know. But there's a little idea out there that it might have been a little bit of foul play, that he needed like a stimulus in funding.
And finds that all of a sudden.
Yeah, and then the other thing that's very compelling also is that Khufu, there's nothing about Khufu to be found other than a 2-inch tall statue.
Tiny little thing.
Tiny little thing. Where Ramses II is all over the place.
Right, and if this was the one who built the pyramid,
supposedly it was built for him. For his, And wow. So they're saying that the sarcophagus, quote unquote, that it's in the king's chamber. They're saying
questionable.
That it's very questionable. But they're saying why isn't there, something on the walls of the king's chamber, elevating Khufu as the builder of the pyramids? There's nothing. Mm-hmm. The only thing that's available is that cartouche way up in that last chamber, which in order to get to it, you have to crawl through 4 different, more very, very difficult. Anyway, you get the idea.
And also another thing is there's nothing that's, from what I understand, states when it was built. Is there something that states that they repaired it at one point? Or is that... Or am I mixing it up with the Sphinx?
No, they're doing repairs. Unfortunately, the weather is brutal. You know, I mean, they have to repair it, and yes, they have been repairing it, and that's a conflict that appears in history because there is a writing. There's on one of the monuments, okay, that the ancient Egyptians, because we're talking about pre-ancient here, that the ancient Egyptians wrote were, actually they were repairing the Sphinx.
It was the Sphinx, okay.
Supposedly when it had just been built. So why would you be repairing something that was just recently built?
Right.
But they're associated with the pyramids because the Sphinx is supposed to be the guardian of the pyramid. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's just an astonishing type of building, and if we try to build it today, we couldn't.
Right. Because
if you start from the bottom up and you realize the footprint is 13 acres. 13 acres.
Wow.
Just think of it. One side is over 755 feet long, I believe. Okay? And another very important thing, because I want to talk about things that are not in the books. Mm-hmm. Things that, will grab our audience and they'll say, hey, you really brought some value to this, right?
Don't forget about the 8 sides.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Okay. The pyramid is not a 4-sided pyramid. It's an 8-sided pyramid. And it's only visible on the days of the equinox, which I believe, so the equinox is the days where, morning and night are of the same length, okay? And that's the only time that it's truly visible. You can see it from outer space now with all this computer digital analysis and so forth. Mm-hmm. It's a very clear, very delicate cut right in the center of each face, which instead of making it 4 sides, it makes it 8 sides.
Right.
And that is also
How did they design that? I mean, you already have something extremely complex,
right.
which is 4 sides, but now you have a slight little, what would it be, like a little
It right down the center of each
indentation.
face.
Yeah.
It's I believe it's convex, and so what they're saying is, so Egyptologists are clinging to their history and saying, "Hey, Egypt was the most marvelous thing. The Egyptians built this." Look, it's in Egypt. They were a tremendous civilization, no doubt about it. But everything is pointing to
pre
okay?
pre-ancient Egypt.
And they shouldn't feel that it's taking anything away from their heritage.
Mhm.
They should share it with the world because there's a lot of stuff hiding going on. And I would think it would happen in any country. I'm not pointing fingers at Egyptians, okay? But the black market or underground market for all these ancient treasures that are coming up, it's like a $2 billion market.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, since you want to talk about things that, let's say, aren't in the textbook,
Yeah.
what are some of the theories that seem most reasonable to you based on what you've read? And because you talked about an energy source, I had looked into Tesla apparently
Right.
studied the pyramids and tried to replicate some of
so
what the energy they apparently they
okay,
provided.
so there's a ton of theories out there, okay, that it was a spiritual thing, this and that and whatever, okay.
You got a page full of theories.
Well, yeah, our viewers need to realize that we do this for fun,
Oh yeah.
okay, but this will definitely stimulate the minds of young people out there that want to study this and make a difference. And I've said many times, you go to Egypt, it doesn't matter where you go, and you get a shovel and you just dig 3 feet under and you're going to find something because it was just a tremendous civilization. All the Middle East, the same thing. You go to Iraq, same thing, okay. But there's a lot of proof, let's say, that gears towards an energy producing type of plant. I believe in 2019 or at the end of 2018, okay, their Journal of Applied Physics, okay, they sent out an inventory of people there, and they studied the Great Pyramid with all its dimensions and everything, and they scientifically prove that it can concentrate electromagnetic energy in its chambers. This is scientific stuff. You can go Google it, and it's in the Journal of Applied Physics. Okay,
We'll link it.
And it's either 2018, end of 2018, or 2019, and they were able to scientifically prove this, and it's tremendous because some of the energy potentially, okay, can come from an aquifer. So the pyramid was built on top of an aquifer.
Which is what?
It's
A
running
river?
water,
Running water.
which you brought up the name of Tesla.
Nikola Tesla.
Nikola Tesla. Tesla built his tower under an aquifer. Okay, so that running water creates energy. Okay, and then there are theories out there that they will able to, it gets a little,
out there.
but that they were able to separate the hydrogen atoms, from the H2O, and thereby mix it with some other kind of chemical and create energy. Okay, so they were saying it was an energy plant, and there's a good argument for it, because today the biggest constructions that we as human beings, forget countries, let's look at us as a world, okay? the biggest constructions that we built as human beings are dams and power and electric generating plants. These are the biggest structures that we built, okay, to generate electricity, to feed the masses, to provide a better life for all human beings.
Water source.
Yeah, water source and so forth. So
interesting.
There's a good argument for that.
Yeah.
And the dam in near Vegas,
Hoover Dam.
the Hoover Dam,
Hoover Dam.
the Hoover Dam has an astrological map in case somebody discovers it.
That's crazy.
Okay, 300 years from now, we are anticipating that the English language is not going to be spoken like we speak it today, and potentially none of these cell phones and floppy disks, none of that will
It's all
be.
gone.
It can potentially be disintegrated. The only thing that's going to last is something made out of solid rock, granite. But to your point, so first of all, the Great Pyramid on the outside, they had this thing called casing stones, which are white polished limestones, okay? And it was beautiful, and it reflected tremendously the rays of the sun. So you can imagine that. It was like a beacon.
Bright.
You could see it miles away, okay? But what happens with that is that type of rock is a great insulator of electricity. So there you have now number one. And the reason we don't see it today is because there was an earthquake in 1303 that dislodged them. But they were precision cut and placed where, again, not a piece of paper could go into, okay? So this casing stones or limestones, okay, covered the entire outside of the pyramid.
Wow.
And when that earthquake happened, people took it to build other things because they were very valuable, okay? But that's one point. That's number one. So that's the casing points, okay? The casing stones. So that's a great insulator, okay? The second point is that the inside of the pyramid has been built with something called dolomite. And dolomite increases electrical conductivity when pressure is applied. Okay, so that's number two. And let me go to three and then I'll make my point. And number three is that the inner parts of the pyramid, the chambers and all this stuff, and also like in the king's chamber, the top, they're made with granite stones. And granite stones have a high concentration of quartz. Okay? High concentration of quartz. And quartz, when you shake quartz or when you provide an electrical current, okay, you get something called piezoelectricity. And that, we see it in the watches that we wear today that are battery operated, like Grand Seikos and stuff like that, you know.
Share with us how that worked, because you shared with me the other day, and I think it'll connect to this.
Yeah.
How is it that the quartz watch, which is a battery operated watch,
Correct.
functions? Real quick.
It has a battery, and it sends it to the electroproducing thing, and so the battery sends a charge. I forget the name of the, but it's an electric
Pulse of some sort.
Yeah, and it sends something like 27,800 pulses a second because it's under pressure, and then that translates it to 1 beat per second. I mean, I'm messing it all up, but that's the idea. So piezoelectricity is not anything that's out there. This is science, and this has been used to make watches of today. And compared to mechanical watches, they keep better timing because you change the battery doesn't, as long as the battery works, the watch is
Perfect.
And so But that technology exists in watches, and it has since 1969, I believe. I think that's when the first one came out,
Got it.
which was Seiko. The Seiko company brought it out. So that idea of piezoelectricity is not anything out there. This is science, and you guys can Google.
Fact check us to
Fact check us to.
So the quartz that's in it, the granite has a lot of quartz.
Correct. A high concentration of it. And so when you take those three items, the casing stones, okay, when you take the dolomite and when you take the granite stones, it's everything that we do today to create electricity.
Yeah.
Okay? So they're saying, hey guys, there's more to this than meets the eye. This was not a tomb for this Pharaoh Khufu. It's just not it. And so a lot of people are saying, well, then what is that sarcophagus in the king's chamber? Well, a lot of people are saying it wasn't a sarcophagus. Okay? And they're looking, one of the arguments is what happened to the lid? Because the lid is no longer there. And they're comparing it to one of the tombs in Mexico where the lid had tremendous amount of hieroglyphics, and it shows like a guy in a spaceship,
Oh, really?
the king, I forget his name right now, like it literally looks like a spaceship, and it looks like he's got something,
mask or something,
mask and everything, and he's leaving Earth, and it looks like it's got fire underneath him, like if it was a rocket.
Yeah.
So they're saying, look, we should, whatever happened to that, and so, but, and then, the pyramid is a marvelous piece of engineering, because we just talked a little bit about the king's chamber, but there's something called the subterranean chamber. When you go into the pyramid, you go up this shaft, okay? And then you have to take a little turn and go down to some place where it's called the subterranean chamber. Well, the subterranean chamber is built through solid rock. They had to break solid rock to get to it. And then when they get to it, it's rough. They left it in a rough format. It's actually, listen to this, 600 feet below the apex of the pyramid. Just get your head around that. 600 feet below the apex of the pyramid. And get your head around this. It's also 100 feet below the base of the pyramid. So they had to carve
because the pyramid
through
you said was 400 and something feet.
481 feet tall.
Got it.
So
it's under the ground?
That is correct. Mm-hmm. And it's called the subterranean chamber. Okay? And so how do you do that?
That's crazy.
How do you build that?
Yeah.
So that in itself, and we could talk about the stuff that did, but okay, so that's one thing. And then the other thing is, I drew a little rudimentary thing, but as you enter the pyramid, and by the way, they were saying that there were 8-ton doors that kept it open, and they would close shut to provide this pressure, okay? But there's a corridor that's like 300 feet long, and it's only 3 feet 6 inches by 3 feet 6 inches. So you can't walk straight up. You have to bend over. You have to be in good shape, okay, to get into the pyramid. And as you walk through, you come to a place called the Grand Gallery. And the Grand Gallery, I believe, is like 153 feet long and 28 feet tall. And it's called a cantilever bolt because the granite stones that they built the Grand Gallery with, they narrow in as it goes higher. So they build one granite stone overlapping and slightly coming over, and so the next one's the same, so it goes up. So the acoustics in that Grand Gallery, in that chamber, are out of this world. So they're saying, look, part of the stuff that it was built with, the acoustics, something has to do with it. This is a lost type of art that we don't know about. We're trying to apply modern day thinking with what we know, but this is something beyond the scope of what we can understand. This is another type of engineering or whatever that we don't know, because
Yeah,
first
another
of all,
technology.
another technology. And so, but we're talking about the pyramid. So, there's another chamber that it's slightly slanted off the grand gallery, and it's called the Queen's Chamber. Okay? Now, there was a guy, I forget his name. He was a mason, an English mason, that started, because they knew that there were shafts in the King's Chamber. So I think it was like in the late 1800s, he got a little hammer, he got into the Queen's Chamber, and he started popping, all the walls, and he found that there were two chambers there. Two shafts, excuse me. Okay? Now, what's interesting is that in the Queen's Chamber, there's two shafts. In the King's Chamber, there are two shafts. The two shafts in the King Chambers do go out to the outside of the pyramid. The shafts in the Queen Chamber do not come out of the pyramid. They end somewhere in the pyramid. And these are the robots that you're hearing that, hey, they took a robot to the Great Pyramid of Giza to put in a shaft to see where it leads. These are the shafts in the Queen Chamber, because they don't come out of the structure of the pyramid. And some guy named Rudolph Canterbury was the first one that took he's a engineer.
Took a robot.
Mechanical engineer. He took one of the robots.
Yeah, a drone or something.
Yeah, and then, he sent it through the one of the shafts, and they found that it came to a door, like a little door, okay, which had like some metal curved strips coming out, which they're saying that it was copper, which is very interesting, because copper can conduce electricity if a charge gets applied to it. And they show a schematic of how you need two of them to close this electrical circuit, which you can produce extremely high amounts of energy based on what we talked about that has been built, especially the dolomite. Okay, so this gentleman named Sahi Hawass stopped the minute they found out that there was this door. Sahi Hawass stopped the entire research, and it wasn't until much years later, I think 2011, another robotics engineer came in, and this time, since they knew there was a door there, they brought a laser to drill through that door, and then put a little cannula to see what was behind it. And what they found out is that there was a space and then another door. And I don't know if to this day we have, checked that out. But in the process of getting in there after the second door, they found some inscriptions which were not hieroglyphics. And they looked like an electrical schematic drawing.
Jeez.
I know. They look like an electrical schematic drawing as an informational kind of thing for whoever comes next. Okay?
Yeah.
And so we don't know what it's saying. We can't decipher it, but it sure looks like, and you all you have to do is talk to an electrical engineer, because you run in modern day buildings, you run 10,000 cables. You're going to have to label some of those cables. You're going to have to put some kind of schematic, that the advanced electrical people can read, not an average guy like me that doesn't know, didn't study electricity or whatever. But you have to have this. You see them in all the boxes, you see. So it sure looks like an electrical schematic kind of thing. to guide whoever comes in next. So anyway, that's super exciting stuff. And this is, you know, one of the biggest mysteries on the face of the planet. There are many. There are many.
Oh yeah.
But, you know, the Great Pyramid of Giza happens to be, you know, one of the seven wonders of the world, the only remaining one left. And so it's super exciting, you know, you get there and...
Now, you talked about conductivity and in the electrical. You were sharing that, which is amazing. Do we know if there was a gold cap?
They're saying that the Pyramidium, which is the tip, which is missing, that there's a lot of mysteries, you know. You know, you can go down a rabbit hole, like I say. You know, you can read yourself into oblivion, okay? But so what they're saying is that apparently there was a Pyramidium that was made out of solid gold, okay? Which gold is a tremendous conductor of electricity. So it makes sense that it would be made out of gold because the tip of it would potentially point that energy coming out to be useful and trapped somewhere for use, okay?
But it's not documented, or that's
No,
just a theory that
it's a
there was
theory. Yeah,
cap.
they're saying
Okay.
that it's missing. So whoever,
Whatever was on the point is missing on the
right?
tip.
It's called the Pyramidium,
Okay.
and apparently it was made out of gold, and in today's value, it'd be worth billions and billions of dollars.
Oof.
Okay, so for sure it's missing. God knows where that is.
And no treasures were found in the pyramid, in terms of like, you know, treasures that are found typically in a
Non-documented.
tomb.
Non-documented. You know, it's interesting. But, you know, it's filled with mysteries galore. Because, for example, there's another note here. There was a guy named Louis Norden, Frederick Louis Norden, that did an expedition. He was a Danish naval in the Danish Academy. And the king, he was so good. He was a cartographer, and he was so good that in 1708, he was born in 1708 or something like that. So he was sent by the king to Egypt. I think he was on his way to Ethiopia, but they had some trouble with the ships and some trouble with weather or whatever, so he was stuck in Egypt for quite a while, okay? And he produced one of the most important archaeological surveys to history, okay? And this guy says that there weren't 3 pyramids in the Giza Plateau. He says there were 4. Okay? And one of them, he says it was very, very dark. It was made with dark black granite. Now, black granite for the Egyptians was revered as having powers of reincarnation, okay? And but is also extremely hard and very difficult to work with. So this guy named Frederick Louis Norden said, this is an amazing feat of engineering. And he was a cartographer. So he...
What's that?
You know, he make maps and drawings, and, you know, he measure out lengths of lands, and he was extremely accurate. He was gifted. He was gifted with that gift, let's say. And so he was so good that he stood out over everybody else, and the king chose him to do this. He's saying that there were 4 pyramids, not 3. Where is that 4th one? Where is it, Mike?
And that's in the 1700s.
That is correct. He was in Egypt in 1737. I believe he was born in 1708. The king sent him out there.
What was his name?
His name was Frederick Louis Norden. And he was a prodigy. Okay? A prodigy. And he's saying that there were 4 pyramids. And he was not mistaken. He said there are some satellite pyramids to the tune of 7 or 8. but this one stands with the big pyramids. Okay? And it's amazing because he says the stone on this particular one is blacker than anything else. And so they're saying, where is it? This guy was an experienced cartographer, gifted. Where is he? Where is that fourth pyramid? So there are mystery after mystery after mystery.
Yeah.
And if it was just him, but there's another guy, and this is why I'm bringing this information, because to get this information, you really have to be a nerd like me, and really fall in love with this thing and stay up at 3 a.m. reading all this nonsense. But I enjoy it. So there was a guy named Cornelius de Brie. Cornelius de Brie was around in 1674. Okay? And he also was one of these gifted, they don't label him a cartographer, but he was like a design, and he was gifted in drawings. And he draws the Giza plateau with 4 pyramids, not 3.
In the 1600s.
In 1674,
Wow.
or in the 1600s, yeah. In 1698, he wrote something called, in 1698, he wrote Travel Asia Minor, a book on Travel Asia Minor, Traveling Asia Minor. And he wrote about the Giza Plateau. And he does a drawing with 4 pyramids, not 3 like we see today. So it's not just Frederick Lewis Norden that talks about it. It's also Cornelius de Brie. And these were gifted men. These were men that were chosen by their, de Brie I think was French, by their country to go out there. Because there was like, everybody has been,
in awe.
the whole world has been in awe about Egypt forever.
Sure.
From Napoleon, from priors to Napoleon, there are Arab philosophers that have looked it up, okay? And the last clue I'll give so that somebody can search it out, there's something called the Wall of the Crow. Now, this Wall of the Crow is 650 feet long, 30 feet high, and 30 feet thick. Now, they're saying if there was a 4th pyramid, usually there's a causeway leading to the pyramid. And they're saying that potentially this Wall of the Crow could be the causeway leading to the 4th pyramid. I think it's much further away than all the other causeways. For the Pyramid of Khufu has a causeway. The Pyramid of Khafre has a causeway, and the Pyramid of Menkaure has a causeway.
What is that, like a walkway?
Yeah.
A ramp or something?
No, not a ramp. It's like usually they would build a causeway to the pyramids, but in this particular instance, okay, on the other 3, the causeway leads to each one of those pyramids I just mentioned. On this one, this causeway doesn't lead to anything. It leads to empty space.
And what's
so
it called?
Why hasn't anybody started digging at the end of that causeway? Because you got to get permits. And I've traveled outside of the United States, and sometimes to get something done, I've been in different countries, and you got to get a permit. You got to get a seal here. You got to go to the other department in the other city, get another seal or un sello.
It's not easy.
No, it's not easy to get permits to do anything because...
No, not even here.
No, we human beings, we tend to complicate things.
Sure.
Now, there's a lot to be said about people that, because you had explorers that went to Egypt and dynamited things, and in the process of digging they destroy stuff. So you do need someone to control these folks that just want to go out there and
and maybe erase some of
history.
history.
And so, but this is fascinating history that alludes to a previous ancient civilization that was potentially, Mike, more advanced than we are, if not just advanced, but I'm thinking way more advanced than we are.
Yeah, because
way more advanced.
Absolutely. I mean, if this structure or these structures have lasted thousands of years, well, it's lasted thousands of years. What do we have today that's been built by us that would last? And like you said, dams would probably be one of the things that would last, right? The longest.
Yeah.
These huge structures that we've put up.
Right. And
but our buildings, made of wood and steel, all of that, just eventually earthquakes decompose all that. But
look,
this is thousands of years.
Yeah, let me give you an example. The Titanic has been underwater for over 100 years. It's going to be gone in no time at all. There was a research done that there's apparently bacteria that's actually eating the steel from within. And, can you imagine an organism that can digest steel and eat it? Look it up. Okay, look it up so that you can see that, I'm not all that out there.
Yeah.
But the Titanic is going to be gone in a few years.
Yeah.
Maybe 50, whatever. It's completely deteriorating. And the reason they did the study is because they went under and they said, wait a minute, why is this caving in? Apparently the second story of the Titanic has caved in onto the front story, and that should not happen. And they're saying, why did this happen? Scientists are asking themselves that question. And then there's a research study out there that says, hey, you know what? This is amazing. There's bacteria that's actually eating the steel, and it's causing this to deteriorate at a much faster rate than we ever anticipated.
Yeah, yeah. And it's amazing that the elements.
Oh,
I mean, the elements what we built can't withstand them.
No.
But for the pyramid that's above ground, but had who knows rainfall and water and wind and all the sun and everything breaking it down, and it's still there, and it's one of the largest buildings, or structures that we have.
Tremendous mysteries.
And over 2.5 million stones, right?
2.5 million stones. Some people say, Joe Rogan had Graham Hancock. You guys want to learn about this stuff? Go pull up Graham Hancock.
Dr. Robert Schoch.
Dr. Robert Schoch.
West.
Carlson. Okay.
Randall Carlson. John Anthony
West. These people that are, and they're new guys right now. There's that lady named Martinez that apparently she's discovered the tomb of Cleopatra. And if Martinez is correct, and this is the tomb of Cleopatra, it's going to be the biggest discovery ever. Okay? And look, in 2020, the biggest city, which I think is just like 15 miles from Luxor, has been recently discovered in 2020. And even Zahi Hawass has labeled it the Golden City. And they found all kinds of treasures and stuff, and they're thinking that it's going to be a monumental discovery. There's just not enough funds to
dig it up.
It just takes a lot of hard work. It takes people with ethics not to steal.
Is that Saqqara? No.
I think it's from Luxor. It's near Luxor.
Oh, okay.
And in 2020. It was just discovered in 2020. So for those of you that think that, Egypt has nothing left to give, I got news for you. Under every inch of sand in Egypt, there lies a huge mystery to be discovered and unveiled. Which, by the way, if you look at the history of Howard Carter, which he discovered the tomb of King Tut, everybody was against him. Everybody had already said, hey, you know what? There's nothing else to be discovered in the Valley of the Kings. Nothing else. But he had one little clue he picked here, tied it up with another little clue here, this and that, and he was completely devoted, like a mad scientist into this thing. Because you have to, it's like, like, it reminds me of a comment that Steve Jobs made one day. And he said, he was having an interview, and he told the guy, look, you have to be insane to build a company this size like Apple and to devote the amount of hours. You just have to be insane. You have to be crazy in order to do it. But look how he improved humanity with all the stuff that he brought about, because it has improved, you know. But yeah, you have to be crazy. So Howard Carter, everybody was telling him, hey, there's nothing else that the Valley of the Kings can yield.
Yeah.
Everything that was there has been discovered. Okay? But he stuck to it, and he hit the tomb of King Tutankhamun. Okay? Which brings me to another point. There was a point where Zahi Hawass said, we know everything there is to know about the Sphinx. Really? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? There's a chamber underneath the left paw of the Sphinx that supposedly is holding, the
Hall of Records.
The Hall of Records.
So
and on and on and on, and there are undiscovered shafts in Egypt. There's shafts that go down over 100 feet.
Wow.
And then they go in different directions. Anyway.
Yeah, we're not even close to. But this was super informative. I mean, I learned a lot.
Well,
and
trying to bring things that you can't find that readily, but with this ideas now, everybody can go look and search, because
independent research.
Yeah.
I think it'd be appropriate that you share with us, to wrap it up, what little statue you have.
This guy here?
Yeah, for our viewers.
This guy I bought this, I don't know, 20 years ago, a long time ago, and this is Ramses II. I took a trip, I forget, it was out of the country, maybe Canada or something, and I saw this store, and I fell in love with it, and I bought it. And supposedly he's one of the greatest builders of all time in ancient Egypt. And with Egypt, everything has 2, 3, 4 stories. So there's some writing out there that says, hey, you know what? He came up to a temple and he just put his name on it. He didn't actually build this one, and there's some proof to that. And so, but he was one of the most prolific builders. There's all kinds of stuff in Egypt with Ramses II on it. And so that's who he is.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope that people enjoy this.
Yeah, I definitely did. Thank you for sharing. If you guys enjoyed this one, they can check out the Sphinx video we did.
Yeah.
And
thank you for your comments and subscribing. We're excited about the channel. Huh?
Yeah.
It's all
appreciate
cool.
all the love.
All the love.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.